Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my top 24 running back rankings and tiers for the 2023 fantasy football season in PPR leagues. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my top 24 running back rankings and tiers for the 2023 fantasy football season in PPR. We begin with the S-tier running backs at number 1 with Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers, current underdog ADP running back 1 at pick 3.5. There are not a lot of negative things that you could say about Christian McCaffrey. This man went from a disgruntled Carolina Panthers offense where he was bending defenses over to one of the best offenses in the NFL in the San Francisco 49ers, and shocker, he was just as good, if not better. He was the RB2 in PPR last year and the RB2 in PPR points per game. He played in all 17 games last season. He was top 10 in carries as well as rushing yards, top 2 in targets and receptions, number 1 in receiving yards, and number 3 in total touchdowns with 13. In terms of efficiency, he was 8th in yards per touch, 6th in breakaway runs, and 4th in yards created. The San Francisco 49ers are going to be one of the best offenses in the National Football League yet again. Christian McCaffrey is going to be one of the most used running backs in the National Football League, and his head coach, Kyle Shanahan, is, in my opinion, the best running game guru in the NFL. So this is a recipe for success for Christian McCaffrey. He is going to be force-fed the ball in one of the best offenses. He is one of the best running backs in the NFL. It should be a shock to no one when Christian McCaffrey finishes as the RB1, and I would be hard-pressed unless there was an injury to McCaffrey if he finished outside the top 3 running backs. At number 2, we have Austin Ekeler of the LA Chargers, underdog ADP running back 2 at pick 7.5. He was the RB1 in PPR as well as in PPR points per game. Now, he is not able to get as many carries as Christian McCaffrey, and I don't think even under new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, he will be able to get 250 potential carries like Christian McCaffrey would, but he's going to make up with that with his insane receiving volume. So he was 20th in carries, 17th in rushing yards last year, but he was 1st in targets, 1st in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards, and he scored the most rushing and receiving touchdowns at running back, so most total touchdowns with 18, number 1 at running back. He is also uber efficient, 15th in yards per touch, 2nd in yards created, 4th in yards created per touch, and 2nd in terms of dominator rating. I know some people may panic because Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator, and maybe they won't dump the ball off as much, but I will tell you right now, Justin Herbert, the pervert, has it ingrained deep in his mind to dump the ball off to Ekeler. He is, in my opinion, the best player on this offense aside from Justin Herbert, and they are going to force feed this man the ball. Again, another incredibly safe running back. Closing out the S tier, we have Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons, underdog ADP running back 3 at pick 8.6. Now, everyone and their mom has basically gotten down on their knees and given Bijan Robinson the metaphorical gawk 9,000, right? Everyone loves Bijan Robinson, and for good reasons. This man was dominating like Shaquille O'Neal in the paint at Texas from 2020 to 2022, and he put up back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. This is a guy that, while he only had 19 receptions for 314 receiving yards last year, could be potentially in a situation to get 50-plus receptions at the NFL level. This is an Atlanta Falcons offense that runs on running the ball. This is a team that wants to run the ball at an absorbent rate, and I think they are going to do that in 2023. You don't draft Bijan Robinson where you drafted him in the 2023 NFL draft to have Desmond Ridder drop back and throw the ball 40 fucking times a game like he's Patrick Mahomes. This is the perfect situation for Bijan Robinson to be in, and I think in his rookie year, Bijan Robinson has the upside to be the RB1 in fantasy. I know some people are nervous because he's a rookie. Maybe they got bent over a table by Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but this is not the same situation. Bijan Robinson is built different, and again, I think he has the upside to be the RB1. Moving now to the A tier, we begin at number 4 with 9-inch Nicholas Chubb of the Cleveland Browns, underdog ADP running back 4 at pick 12.4. I've been talking up Nick Chubb for what feels like the whole entire offseason, and I have moved him up even further in my rankings to spot number 4. This is a guy that I've been talking about potentially being a first-round pick in a majority of fantasy football drafts, and I think we're there right now. At the end of the first round, it is hard to not click on Nicholas Chubb. RB6 in PPR last year, RB7 in PPR points per game. He was top 3 in carries as well as rushing yards, but where things went sour for Chubb, he was 31st in targets, 33rd in receptions, 24th in receiving yards, but he still scored 13 total touchdowns, number 3 at running back. I think with Kareem Hunt gone out of the Cleveland Browns system, we are going to be seeing Nick Chubb get a lot more receiving work in this offense. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to look like a steaming pile of dog shit like he did during last season when he was given the opportunity to play, and I think this Browns offense is going to bounce back. I think Nick Chubb is going to potentially see the most carries at the NFL, or in the NFL, and if he's able to up his targets just a little bit more, he does have that running back 1 upside. I don't feel as confident in him being the running back 1 as the guys ahead of him in the S tier, but it is definitely in the realm of possibilities. In terms of efficiency stats, 9th in true yards per carry, 13th in yards per touch, 6th in yards created, and 4th in juke rate. At number 5, we have Saquon Barkley of the New York Football Giants, underdog ADP running back 5 at pick 70. Now, or at pick 17. Now, obviously, early on in fantasy football drafts, when Saquon Barkley was threatening the holdout, and then he held out, I was starting to get a little bit nervous about Saquon Barkley. There was the chance that he was going to hold out, but the team offered him just slightly more money, and he folded instantly. It's like when you're in an argument with your girlfriend and you're like really mad and you can't even get over what she's talking about, and then she pulls her titties out and magically you fold, right? That is exactly what Saquon Barkley did for like an extra $900,000. Running back 5 in PPR, running back 5 in PPR points per game last season. Brian Daboll really turned this offense around, making Daniel Jones look a lot better. Thus, the whole offense played a lot better. 16 games played. He was top 5 in carries as well as rushing yards, 6th in targets, 7th in receptions, 14th in receiving yards, and 10th in total touchdowns. He was 2nd in breakaway run rate, 6th in evaded tackles, and 5th in yards created. I think this Giants offense is going to only get better. I think Saquon Barkley, again, all these guys in the A tier could be top 3 running backs pretty easily, but I just don't feel as confident in them as the guys in the S tier. If you want to argue about Saquon being ranked ahead of Nick Chubb, I'm not going to argue too much with you. These are 2 freak athletes that are going to be some of the best running backs in the NFL. At number 6, we have a guy that has been screaming, skyrocketing up my rankings, Tony Pollard, final guy in the A tier of the Dallas Cowboys, underdog ADP running back 6 at pick 18.5. He was the RB8 in PPR last year and the RB9 in PPR points per game. He played in 16 games last year and was only given 4 starts. This motherfucker only started 4 games, and he was a top 10 running back in points per game as well as finish on the season. He was 23rd in carries, 15th in rushing yards, 16th in targets, 17th in receptions, 12th in receiving yards, and 6th in total touchdowns. This guy was as efficient as it gets. 13th in true yards per carry, 5th in yards per touch, 4th in breakaway run rate, and 8th in average defenders in the box. 6.9 average defenders in the box. Very nice. I like. So they were loading the box up to defend Tony Pollard, and they couldn't do it. Zeke is now gone. Tony Pollard is going to be playing on his franchise tag, and you know what that means? That Mike McCarthy is going to feed the ball down Tony Pollard's throat the same way he feeds himself Denny's after every single game because he looks like the fucking Kool-Aid man. I expect Tony Pollard to be seeing a shit ton of volume game in and game out, and the volume alone in an offense like the Cowboys is going to push him a long way. Moving to the B tier running backs, we begin with Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, current underdog ADP running back 10 at pick 31.4. Now, I know a lot of people are worried about Josh Jacobs, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to fold just like Saquon Barkley. Maybe it'll take longer. Maybe it'll take a couple more weeks, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to want that bag. I think he's going to collect his check. Running back 3 in PPR, running back 3 in PPR points per game. He was amazing last year. I was so off on Josh Jacobs. I thought this was going to be a running back by committee under Josh McDaniels, and I was far from correct. 2nd in carries, first in rushing yards, top 12 in targets, receptions, top 8 in receiving yards, and he scored 12 total touchdowns, 6th. He created the most yards at the running back position. He was 18th in yards per touch and 11th in juke rate. I don't think the Raiders offense is going to be some world beaters in 2023, but I know if Josh Jacobs steps on the field for this team, they are going to give him a bunch of carries, and Josh Jacobs looked really good last season, the best we've seen Josh Jacobs, and I don't think this is some one-year wonder Peyton Hillis shit. I think Josh Jacobs is there to stay as a elite running back at the NFL level, but obviously there are some worries. The fact is, maybe he doesn't come back, and you swung and you missed. You drafted a guy that doesn't even fucking play the whole season, which knocks him from being an A-tier guy into the B-tier. Next up, we got Derrick Henry of the Les Titans, underdog ADP, running back 7 at pick 21.6. Top 4 running back 4 in PPR and 4 in PPR points per game. Every single year, without fail, we as a fantasy community always galaxy brain ourselves out of drafting Derrick Henry. Despite the fact that we know how many carries he's going to get, despite the fact that we know that this guy can truck someone over and legitimately murder them on the gridiron, we still try to talk ourselves out of Henry. We say, oh, his yards per carry number has dropped every year basically since 2020. It was 5.4, then to 4.3, now 4.4. Nick, how is he going to keep doing it? How is he going to put up numbers? It's because this offense runs through Derrick Henry, and the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is going to allow the defense to not stack the box as much and give even more better opportunities to Derrick Henry. 16 games played last season, number 1 in carries, number 2 in rushing yards. He actually got a nice uptick in targets, 26th and in targets, 25th in receptions, 9th in receiving yards, and 3rd in total touchdowns. Obviously, Derrick Henry is now not magically McCaffrey or Austin Ekeler, but he is going to catch passes, and that's going to help him a decent amount. He was 3rd in yards created, 5th in evaded tackles. I get he's going to be 29 years old during the season, but I am not going to fade a guy like Derrick Henry, who again will run any poor bastard and hit them with the Ray Lewis hit stick. I am in love with Derrick Henry this season, and anyone tells you not to draft him because he's getting old, this, that, and the other thing, just imagine how the defenses are going to figure out how to stop DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry on the same team. It's not possible. They're not going to be able to stack the box. Derrick Henry is going to score a lot of fantasy points. Moving now to the final guy in the B tier, Rhamondre Stevenson of the Patriots, underdog ADP, running back 9 at pick 28.3. If you guys have ended up enjoying today's video thus far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as hitting that like button down below. Running back 7 in PPR last year, running back 11 in PPR points per game. 17 games played last year, 17th in carries, 12th in rushing yards, 3rd in targets. He had 69 receptions. Very nice. I like. Number 4 running back, 7th in receiving yards, and 22nd in total touchdowns. Rhamondre Stevenson was the only good player on the Patriots offense. It didn't matter if the Zapaneta Bailey Zappi was playing or if a disheveled Magic Mac Jones, that's not his nickname, but Mystic Mac Jones was playing back there. It didn't matter. Rhamondre Stevenson was getting a bunch of carries. He basically kicked Damian Harris directly in the cock and sent him to Buffalo. Rhamondre Stevenson's going to be the lead back there. But the reason why I've had to bump him down my rankings, despite the fact that I think the Patriots offense is going to be a lot better this year, is the fact that I know for sure they are going to sign someone. Whether it's Lenny, that would be the worst case scenario, or Zeke, or maybe Kareem Hunt, that's going to suck for Rhamondre Stevenson. Now, if they sign Zeke, it'll be just fine. But if they bring in Lenny, who I think still has some juice, Kareem Hunt, who I think still has some juice, it's going to make me not as confident in Stevenson, which is why I have to move him to the bottom of the B tier. He's 7th in yards created, 7th in yards created per touch, 18th in true yards per carry, 3rd in evaded tackles. Again, this guy's really fucking good. It's just the fact that I think another running back is going to be added there that is going to hurt his upside to really cement himself as one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I think if they, for some reason, don't add any running backs, he actually does have that upper echelon upside. Moving now to the C tier, we got Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, underdog ADP, running back 8 at pick 22.7. Man requests a trade. Will he be traded? Will he sit out the whole season? Will he play in week 1? Who knows? The world is our oyster at this point. And maybe that's not even the correct way to say things, but we don't know. I don't know. And that scares me. I don't think Jonathan Taylor is the Jonathan Taylor we saw last season, right? Running back 33 in PPR, running back 18 in PPR points per game, right? You drafted this guy number 1 overall, and he blew your back out without the use of lube. He was outside the top 20 in all major categories: carries, rushing yards, targets, receptions, receiving yards, total touchdowns. He was not great in true yards per carry, 30th. He was 24th in yards created. But again, the whole Indianapolis Colts offense last year just imploded on itself. They go from Frank Reich to Jeff Saturday as the head coach. The offensive line isn't the same offensive line. Matt Ryan just literally looks like a corpse rolling out there to play football. So if JT stays on the Colts, and if he's good to go for week 1 and he's playing, then I'm going to move him up because I think he bounces back easily. But knowing what we know right now, it's kind of scary to draft Jonathan Taylor. I am way more confident that Jacobs will play week 1 compared to Jonathan Taylor. Before we talk about Breece Hall, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. We have brought them up already a bunch in today's video. They're the best place to play best ball fantasy football this summer. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. So you don't have to edit your lineup. So you do the 18-round draft, and that's it. At the end of every single week, Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup for you. They have the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $25 to enter, Best Ball Mania 4, 150 max entries, $3 million to first place, $15 million in total prizes. Now, if that sounds like a little too much of an entry price for you since you are new, they're going to have smaller contests like the Puppy, the Pomeranian, $5 contest, $3 contest, $7 contest. They recently had the Hound Dog, $10 contest. You don't even want to play in tournaments. They also have games that are basically just like your league. You versus 11 other people, $3 to enter, as low as $3 to enter. The first 2 places make money. It is very fun. I love doing it, and I think it's the best way to actually prepare for your regular fantasy football league. So if you want to draft on there, that sounds fun. Make sure you use promo code Notorious or click on the link in the video description for a first match deposit bonus of up to $100. You deposit $100, they give you an additional $150, additional $50, $25, and additional $25. So back to Breece Hall here, running back of the New York Jumbo Jets. Underdog ADP running back 11 at pick 34.4. There is a glaring issue with Breece Hall, and it has nothing to do with him. It is the fact that Dalvin Cook might show up and hit Breece Hall with the RKO from out of nowhere, right? Because Breece Hall looked fantastic when given the opportunity to actually be the guy last season. He was the RB8 in PPR points per game. He played in 7 games last year with 2 starts. Obviously, he suffered that injury, but the injury doesn't even bake into my rankings. It's just the fact that if Dalvin Cook shows up, Breece Hall's value goes not into the gutter, not into undraftable, but it would probably fall outside the top 12 pretty easily to me. He was 3rd in true yards per carry, 1st in yards per touch, 1st in juke rate, 2nd in breakaway run rate. This is going to be an offense that is going to be much better than in years past, right? Breece Hall was dominating when the offense, the quarterback was fucking Mike White, Zach Wilson, and cool Joe Flacco. So you better believe under Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall is going to step up in a big way. But the fact that Dalvin Cook might just rear his ugly head here is scaring me enough to not rank him higher than number 11. Moving now to the D tier at number 12, we have Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions, underdog ADP running back 12 at pick 35.4. This guy played his first 2 years at college at Georgia Tech before joining Alabama in 2022. He played in 12 games in 2022 at 20 years old, 151 rushes for 926 yards, 44 receptions for 444 yards, and a 12.8% target share in that offense. This guy is as fast as it gets. 99th percentile 40-yard dash with a 4.36, 91st percentile speed score with 110.1, 5'9", 199 pounds, so he's not built like Derrick Henry or something, but I think you can kind of compare him, right? He's a shorter back with great speed like Swift or like Alvin Kamara. Now I know Swift left a sour taste in your guys' mouth last year. Jamal Williams scored all the touchdowns, and the reason why was because there's a lot of reports that Swift And the coaches didn't get along. That's why they said bye-bye to him, traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles, and brought in Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft. This is going to be an offense that is going to be much better than most people think. I still like David Montgomery a lot where he's going in fantasy drafts, but I think the receiving upside of Jahmyr Gibbs is enough to rank him inside of the top 12. The first 11 running backs, like even with the kind of cloudiness around Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, I feel pretty good around where I have ranked those guys in the top 11. After that, it's kind of a ragtag group after the top 11, right? If you said, Nick, I like Joe Mixon or Aaron Jones above Jahmyr Gibbs, I wouldn't say that that's crazy. At number 13, we have Joe Mixon of the Bengals, underdog ADP running back 15 at pick 43.1. He was the RB10 in PPR last year and the RB6 in PPR points per game. He played in 14 games last year. He was 16th in carries, 25th in rushing yards, 7th in targets, 5th in receptions, 6th in receiving yards, and 14th in total touchdowns. Now, something I want to mention about Joe Mixon is that the offensive line last year, it was night and day from the start to the end of the season. The offensive line at the beginning of the season, they didn't have any chemistry. Zero chemistry whatsoever, and they were getting plowed. They were getting ran through like the girl that you remember back in high school, right? The whole fucking football team hit it, right? Everyone was pounding fucking this offensive line. It was bad, hard to watch, and then started getting that chemistry. Around the Dolphins game, start getting a lot better. The run blocking rating for Mixon was 14th. I think it's actually going to get better this season. I know they have other running backs behind Mixon, but I don't think any of them are even as good as Mixon or even close. My only worry with Mixon right now is Burrow. If Burrow misses the first couple of games or Burrow isn't himself early on, sure, maybe they rely on Mixon more, but Mixon's not going to have the upside to have those big touchdown games. Have those big games early on if the team isn't scoring a lot of points. So again, I think Mixon's a pretty safe back, but his upside is severely limited if Joe Mixon ends up not playing, or not Joe Mixon, if Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, doesn't end up playing early on the season. At number 14, we have Ron Jones of the Green Bay Packers, underdog ADP running back 16 at pick 51.9, running back 9 in PPR, running back 12 in PPR points per game. Now, everyone is avoiding Aaron Jones like the fucking bubonic plague because of Jordan Love. Despite the fact that last year, with a subpar version of Aaron Rodgers, this guy was top 15 in carries, top 10 in rushing yards, targets, receptions, and receiving yards. He only scored 7 total touchdowns, 19th, but he was very efficient, 7th in true yards per carry, 12th in yards per touch, 8th in yards created, and 9th in evaded tackles. I know they have A.J. Dillon there, and sure, it's going to be frustrating in some games where A.J. Dillon comes in and pounds the rock in on the goal line, but A.J. Dillon isn't going to take away the receiving volume. Jordan Love is going to dump the ball off a ton because he's a young quarterback. He wants to take the safe check down. And Aaron Jones is as safe as putting a condom over the team. They're going to just keep dumping the ball off to Aaron Jones. I think this is an offense with a great defense that can afford to, even if Jordan Love isn't this upper echelon quarterback, which I don't think he will, to be afforded to late in games still be able to churn the rock and run the ball at a pretty decent rate. Again, I get that A.J. Dillon is there and that makes people a little bit scared, but I think this Packers team is better than people are giving them credit for, and I think Aaron Jones is a lot better than people really think. Closing out the D tier was Aaron Jones, so we are now moving to the E tier. And again, after the top 11, things start to get a little bit dicey. Now, once you move deeper down here, to get even more dicey, starts to get a little bit gross. Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers, underdog ADP running back 13, pick 39.5. Now, I've talked about Najee Harris ad nauseum on this channel. Najee Harris could just fuck around and be the workhorse running back on this team because we all know that Mike Tomlin loves the workhorse running back on his team. He loves to feed one guy the ball. But the problem is Jaylen Warren has been so efficient, and I feel like Jaylen Warren has earned his way into cutting up and taking a slice of the pie out of Najee Harris's workload. Now, Najee suffered a Lisfranc injury in the 2022 preseason that could have impacted his play last year. He also had the 55th run blocking rating, so the offensive line was split open like how Moses parted the Red Sea. He was the running back 14 in PPR last year, 20 in PPR points per game. He got the 5th most carries, but he was 13th in rushing yards, 18th in targets, 15th in receptions, 25th in receiving yards, and 10th in total touchdowns. So there are two ways things fold out here. There is the way of Mike Tomlin sticking with his gut, sticking with the guns, and they run it a bunch with Harris. or Jaylen Warren butts in there, cuts up some of Najee Harris's workload, and then Najee ends up being a bust. I am kind of more in the middle when it comes to Najee Harris. I am not ecstatic to draft him, but if I had to draft him, I wouldn't be so angry, right? I wouldn't be like, shit, I got pushed into a corner and had to draft Najee Harris. I would just be like, I got Najee Harris. That's kind of just how I feel about him. I don't like him as much as the ADP has him at running back 13, but I also don't hate him as much as a lot of people do. He's kind of just a guy I'm indifferent on. I think the Steelers' offensive line is going to be better. I'm just pretty worried about Jaylen Warren, if I'm being honest with you, and that's what's really hurting me from ranking him as a top 12 back. At number 16, we have Alexander Mattison of the Vikings, underdog ADP running back 18 at pick 58.2. I have continued to give Alexander Mattison the metaphorical gawk gawk 9,000. I have been talking up Alexander Mattison ever since Dalvin Cook was gone. So if you look at the stats for Mattison last year, it's nothing special. 51 in PPR, 66 in PPR points per game. He wasn't top 50 in any metric except for total touchdowns where he was 22nd. But if you go back and look, when Dalvin Cook has missed, Mattison has stepped in a humongous way. This guy has shown that he could be a legitimate running back one in the NFL. Now, the doubters will say, but Nick, he couldn't eclipse Dalvin Cook, so he sucks. Right? He couldn't beat out Dalvin Cook, so he can't be great. Okay, sure. Right? Dalvin Cook, last couple of years, I know last year he kind of wasn't as great. He looked a little washed. At the end of the day, Dalvin Cook is still one of the better running backs in the NFL over that time period with Mattison. So it was a humongous uphill battle for Mattison to become the lead guy. But again, when Dalvin Cook missed games in 2021, week 3 against Seattle, 26 carries, 6 receptions on 8 targets, 171 total yards, RB7 on the week. Week 5 against the Lions, 25 carries, 7 receptions on 7 targets, 153 total yards, and a touchdown, running back 6 on the week. We have seen him do it before. Will he be able to be uber efficient on the season as a whole? Maybe not, because he's going to be seeing more carries in terms of his yards per carry number. But volume is king in the NFL. This is going to be an offense that is going to be sprinkling points down on the defense. They'll be scoring a lot of points, and I think you want to be in on Alexander Mattison. Obviously, if they bring in Fournette, they bring in one of these other running backs, then we're going to have to throw him down the rankings. But right now, with how things look with Dwayne McBride, these other guys behind him, I don't think those guys can hold Mattison's jockstrap. At number 17, we have Travis Etienne of the Jaguars, running back, 14 on underdog, pick 40.6. He's been a guy that I'm legitimately in full fade mode for, but I also understand the upside of Etienne. So I'm going to give you the upside argument real quick. The upside is he couldn't catch last year, and it seemed like they didn't really want to rely on him as much in the red zone. Like, he was giving opportunities in the red zone, but he wasn't capitalizing on them. This is an offense that's going to be great. So maybe he works on the catching, he gets more targets. He's the guy that they talked about out of Clemson as this great receiving back with Lawrence. Obviously, they both played together at Clemson, right? And there's going to be a great offense, so they're going to score a lot. So that's the positive for Etienne. The downside is Bigsby is going to light a firecracker under his ass, and maybe Travis Etienne burns up in flame that way, right? Maybe it explodes for Etienne. Bigsby has looked really good in training camp. Bigsby's a guy that I really liked out of Auburn, and I think Bigsby is going to take receiving opportunities from Etienne as well as goal line carries. So there's a lot of negatives for Etienne, but there's also the fact that I've seen Doug Peterson, the coaches, really put their strength into Etienne. I saw something where they think that Etienne's going to get 1,700 all-purpose yards. I don't think he's going to do that. But if the team is saying that, if Peterson's saying that, the coaches are saying this, then you have to kind of just, even though I like Bigsby and I think Bigsby is going to crack into this offense, there's a chance that I'm really wrong. So I don't want to bury Etienne as much as I could, but I'm still pretty nervous about him, and I'll make that very clear. Moving now to the F tier, we begin with Kenneth Walker, RB18, underdog ADP, running back 17 at pick 54.1 of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Kenneth Walker was really good last year once he stepped in for Rashad with 2 A's. Penny, running back 18 in PPR, 17 in PPR points per game. He started 11 games. He was top 12 in carries as well as rushing yards. He struggled in the target department as well as the receiving yards and the receptions department, but he was 14th in total touchdowns. What gets me about Walker is he hurt his groin. And when you hurt your groin and you're out for practice, and Charbonnet is fucking practicing, Charbonnet has that opportunity to cut that roll in, to cut his slice of the pie, take it out. Cut him up like O.J. Simpson style, right? make your mark in the offense. Kenneth Walker was 148th in expected points added at the running back position, which kind of tells you that based upon how good the Seahawks were and how well they played the Pete Carroll system, you could have had any schlub like me run back there, and it probably, now again, obviously I wouldn't be that effective, but you get what I mean, right? Any schlub could have been thrown into that situation. They probably would have been effective. Charbonnet, coming into the league, looked at as a great pass catcher. Walker can't do that. So you already know now Walker's going to get cucked out of third down upside, right? He's going to get cucked off third down. Could Charbonnet eat even further into the role? I think so. And that's what scares me about Walker. But if Walker is cleared from the groin injury, say a couple days from now, a week or so from now, then I can't be fully out on Walker because I think he's good and I think the offense is going to be good. But it's clear that anyone that was trying to talk him up as like a top 3 round pick is just wrong because of the situation he's in. At number 19, we got Dameon Pierce of the Texans, underdog ADP running back 21 at pick 68.3, running back 27 in PPR last year and 21 in PPR points per game. If you guys were watching my videos last year, thank you for doing that. But I was all over Dameon Pierce. I was talking up Dameon Pierce since he was drafted. I talked about how the Houston Texans running back room was hot garbage and Pierce was going to take over instantly. He did. The problem was that Davis Mills was the quarterback and the offense was stagnant. But now they have CJ Stroud. Now they have John Mechie back. They have Nico Collins. They have Dalton Schultz. They have a much better offense, and that dumbass Lovie Smith is gone. Dameon Pierce was pretty solid last season. He was first in evaded tackles, 15th in yards created, and he ranked 63rd in run block rating. So again, the offensive line, hard to be much worse than that. He was top 15 in carries, 13th in carries, 16th in rushing yards. Sure, the targets and receptions and receiving yards weren't there, but Devin Singletary is his backup, and Devin Singletary can't catch to save his life. He had a gun to his head, and he had to catch the ball. That motherfucker is gonna die. Okay? He had 5 total touchdowns last year, 31st. I think this offense is going to be better. I think Dameon Pierce is in a good situation to succeed, and I think he easily outperforms his ADP. Does he have that top 10 upside in him? Probably not. But if the Texans really outperform what most people think, I think he's a good enough running back to do so. And I think his role is very clear in this offense. And I think he's a very safe pick where he's going. At running back 20, still in the F tier, we got Cam Akers of the LA Rams, underdog ADP running back 20 at pick 65.3. Now, last year, if you drafted Cam Akers, you probably felt like your butthole was ravaged. You were touched in the wrong way, right? Running back 35 in PPR, 39 in PPR points per game. You drafted him, he literally sucked, he requested a trade, and then towards the end of the season, he comes back. He rises from the deep depths of being garbage. Someone picked him up off the waiver wire, and he went crazy. Again, the numbers on the season aren't great. He didn't even finish in the top 50 of any target or receptions or receiving yards. He was 26th in carries, 29th in rushing yards. He was 19th in total touchdowns. But at the end of the season is where he really started to pick things up, and he started to look like the Cam Akers that a lot of people talked themselves into drafting in 2022. I think if Stafford's able to stay healthy, Kupp is able to stay healthy, I don't think this is going to be the same Super Bowl team from 2021, but this is going to be a team that is at least remotely competitive. The other running backs on the team behind Akers aren't really all that great either. So if he's able to kind of stay out of sucking ass early on in the season and kind of maybe stay out of his own way early on, and he stays as the lead back from the team, this is just a pretty easy situation where he's going late because everyone is sick, or not even sick of him. People are just not wanting to draft him because they were burnt by him. So take advantage of that and go ahead and take him. I think Cam Akers is going to have a pretty decent season. At number 21, we got James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals, underdog ADP running back 25 at pick 80.2. Top 10 in PPR points per game, running back 19 in PPR last season. 13 games played. He was 28th in carries, 30th in rushing yards, but he was top 12 in targets, 13th in reception, 17th in receiving yards, and 16th in total touchdowns. But the real kicker for James Conner is that when Kyler Murray has been out over the last couple of years with Conner on the Cardinals, James Conner averages 22.5 fantasy points per game, which would have been the running back 1 overall in fantasy in 2021 and 2022. Kyler could miss the whole entire season. James Conner, sure, there is the inherent injury risk with him. but he's not going as running back 12. He's not going early on in fantasy drafts. He's going deep to where you can take the risk. Again, it might sound like I'm beating a dead horse if you watch a lot of the videos, but early on, I try to be as risk averse as possible. I'm not trying to dive into situations where I could get severely hurt. But later on in the drafts, the riskier I can be, right? James Conner doesn't go in the first couple rounds. So I'm more comfortable drafting him because I get that there's a risk that the Cardinals are just terrible, or that James Conner gets hurt because he has a history of getting hurt. And again, that fear of drafting Conner is pushed away by the fact it's stiff-armed Derrick Henry style away, by the fact that the numbers look so good without Kyler, and the fact that he's going so late. To close out the F tier, running back 22, David Montgomery of the Lions, underdog ADP, running back 23 at pick 76.5. Now I know, Nick, you just sung the praises earlier of Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, I like Gibbs, but I also like Montgomery. Because again, I think there's going to be a great offense. I think Montgomery might not be given as many targets as he was given last season in Chicago, because Gibbs will be given a lot of that. But I think we could see David Montgomery mess around and score 12, 13, 14, maybe even 15 touchdowns. We saw Jamal Williams feast on the goal line last year. They paid David Montgomery for a reason. That's because David Montgomery's the bigger back, the wider back, built like a wrecking ball. Gibbs, a little bit more slender, like Kevin Durant, but he's got the speed. They're both going to be useful. Again, I like this Lions offense to be putting up a lot of points. Again, the stats last year for Montgomery, nothing special. I even talked about last year how I think that Khalil Herbert might actually have been better than Montgomery. But I gotta give Montgomery some credit. The offensive line in Chicago was really bad, 50th in run blocking rating. He was still 9th in juke rate and 8th in evaded tackles. He scored 6 touchdowns, sure, but he had over 800 rushing yards. He had over 300 receiving yards. And this offense is better. The offensive line is better. And he's going to be put in a lot of situations to score. That may lead him to be a boom-bust guy week in and week out. But if the Lions are as legit as I think they could be, the NFL clearly thinks they're legit because they're playing the first game of the year up against the Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. So clearly the NFL thinks they're legit. I think David Montgomery is in for a very solid season. Again, another pretty safe option that I think has a lot of upside. And if something happened to Gibbs, knock on wood, we don't root for injury, then Montgomery could go Super Saiyan this season. At number 23, we move to the G tier, the G spot, with Miles Sanders of the Panthers, underdog ADP, running back 19 at pick 63.2. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people that poo-poo my ranking of Miles Sanders because Miles Sanders is the clear running back, one in Carolina, the 3-down back, this, that, and the other thing. Well, I think they are still going to use Chuba Hubbard, the Canadian bastard, behind him. Miles Sanders was the running back 15 in PPR last year, 22 in PPR points per game on one of, if not the best offense in the National Football League of the Eagles. 17 games played, top 10 in carries, 5th in rushing yards, but he can't get targets. 45th in targets, 45th in receptions, 70th in receiving yards, 9th in total touchdowns. He had the best game script at running back, and he was facing only the 34th most defenders in the box on average. He was 28th in yards per touch and 14th in true yards per carry. So, do I think he can be good in Carolina? Yes. Yes, I do. But I think without arguably the best offensive line in the NFL, is Sanders really going to go back to his early days in Philly where he was catching passes? Will that actually happen? If it does, Sanders might be a steal at running back 19. If it doesn't, and maybe the Panthers are not the best in year one under Bryce Young, maybe Chuba Hubbard gets more work than people think, then Miles Sanders, again, probably not going to be a bust where you draft him at running back 19, but he might not have that top 12 upside that a lot of people have really talked themselves into. Again, I don't think Sanders is a bad pick, but he's not a guy that I'm in the draft, have a heat-seeking missile out to go ahead and select him. At running back 24, we got Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos, underdog ADP, running back 26 at pick 80.3. I know there's going to be a lot of comments. Nick, you fucking gypped DeAndre Swift. Where's Alvin Kamara? Where's this other running back? Going to be a top 32 running back rankings video as well, but I got Javonte over these guys. Now I get there's a risk with Javonte. We haven't seen him yet. In preseason, if Javonte goes out there and he can't move, he doesn't have any of that wiggle because of the injury, then yeah, I'm going to be nervous. But early on, I was worried about Williams because it seemed like he was going to be thrown onto the pup, could miss 6+ games. That didn't happen. And he hasn't been limited in any fashion in training camp. There are signs pointing towards him being active in week 1. I think he's going to be eased slowly, just the tip, into the offense. But maybe a couple of weeks in, you can start him very confidently. And once he started to kind of break free, start soaring and flying like his name was Troy Bolton away from Melvin Gordon last season, he started to look good. And then, of course, the injury bug slapped him Will Smith style, right? 4 games last season. Not great for any of the metrics. He didn't even qualify for any of the efficiency stats because he didn't play enough games. But what I saw last year, what I've seen out of Javonte Williams, is that he is a lead back in the NFL. I like Samaje Perine. I think he's a good player. But I don't think Samaje Perine is going to overtake Javonte as the starter. Again, I get that for some people, the fact that you can't play Javonte Williams for the first couple of games is enough to say, I'm out. No deal, right? But some people will tell you to draft Alvin Kamara out of him, and you know you can't play Alvin Kamara for the first 3 games. So, I like Javonte Williams. I like this Broncos offense to bounce back under Sean Payton, and I think Javonte Williams is good enough, even if he's not the same, getting eased into the offense early on, to finish as a top 24 guy. And I want to make this very clear, that I know we have heard reports about him playing in week 2 of the preseason. He plays in week 2, and he's not able to move very well. He looks like your grandpa out there. And I'm going to be putting him down the rankings. Goes out there, he's cutting well, looking good. He might be able to move even higher up the rankings, especially if he's a full go for week number 1. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about these running back rankings down below in the comment section. I love you guys all so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. Make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy again. Promo code Notorious for a first match deposit bonus of up to $100. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.